The Elements of Harmony and Savior of Worlds by Arcade Striker 75. Chapter 1. It had been a rather long day for Princess Celestia. She plodded along the halls of Canterlot, wings folded close to her alabaster white body, and her colorful mane and tail, normally flowing as if in a sea breeze, merely wafted about. Two Pegasus ponies in golden armor stood at the bottom of the stairs leading to her bedchambers. They both stiffened to attention and threw out their wings to salute as Celestia approached. She dipped her head at them, half from courtesy and half from exhaustion. She placed her hoof on the first step and Celestia startled as a spike of magical energy brushed against her senses. It was a tiny spike, almost unnoticeable for how familiar it felt. A sigh threatened to escape Celestia's lips, but she swallowed it, raised her head, and pasted a smile on her muzzle. "I'll be right back," she said to the guards before turning on the hoof and cantering off. The princess quickly exited the tower and galloping away, ignoring those who had stopped to stare at her as she made her way across the Canterlot to Celestia's school for gifted unicorns. Her horn glowed and the gate sprung open, allowing Celestia to quickly enter and reach one of the smaller study rooms. She entered the room and found a small unicorn filly sitting at a lone table, books strewn across the room haphazardly scattered on the marble floor. The filly sat there with her cheek resting on a hoof, a book open before her. She looked up just as Celestia entered, and her violet eyes widened. "Princess Celestia!" Twilight Sparkle said, tilting her chair. "Whoa!" Celestia grabbed her with telekinesis and righted her, halting Twilight Spill. "Whoa there," she said. "Not a good idea to get a concussion so early in life." She looked around the room and snorted. The books floated up and began arranging themselves. "Although, I thought I taught you more respect for literature than this," she said flatly. Twilight blushed, her violet coat almost turning pink. "I'm sorry," she half whispered. She motioned to one tome on the floor. "It's just that my mother gave me this ridiculous book to read about some old mare's tear called the Magne or something." "The Magne," Celestia interrupted. She eyed her prized pupil. "What about the Magne if bothers you?" Twilight shifted under her mentor's gaze. "Well, it's just so fantastic and unbelievable. Some creature from across the bridge of fire comes with arcane knowledge and tools, accompanied by the Danielle and the Molly." She shrugged her tight shoulders. "It's just some old myth that Mom tried telling me about." She hung her head. We got into an argument, and I got all these books to prove her wrong about it." Celestia nodded. "I see." She turned and unfurled her left wing, motioning to the door. "I think there's something you should see, Twilight. It should answer some of your questions." The young filly swallowed, and sweat beading on her forehead, right below her horn. But she slid out of the chair and followed Celestia out of the room. The pair made their way back to the school, to a large steel door embedded in the stone wall. Celestia's horn glowed, and the door slid open, allowing them to descend several flights of stairs into a stone corridor. A small gasp escaped Twilight as they walked down. The modern school left behind for ancient architecture. The way was lit not by electric lamps, but torches. The floor beneath their hoofs not tiles, but roughly honed stone squares. She looked around nervously as they went around a bend in the corridor and approached another steel door. 3 ponies in plate armor stood in front. An earth pony, a Pegasus, and a unicorn. Swords were hung from shoulder and shield on their barrel. The Pegasus looked up at Celestia and snarled, armored horseshoes on his hooves sparking as they dug into the ground. "Halt!" he shouted. He took a step forward. "Password!" Twilight's mouth opened in a small O, and her eyes took the approximate size and shape of saucers. But Celestia merely nodded. "The future," she stated. She looked down at Twilight, a grave expression on her face. "Twilight, this is the vault. There are very few others who know of its existence. Here is the basis of our technology, our government, and very civilization." Each of the guard ponies stepped up to a control panel and placed a hoof in the depression on it. They all looked at each other before twisting their forelegs in sync. A large red light mounted on the panel flashed before turning to green. The door slid open. Celestia paused at the threshold, turning to the guards. "Thank you for your diligence, Captain. It is most appreciated." The Pegasus dipped his head, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth.
I appreciate that Your Majesty.
Celestia and Twilight walked into a huge room, easily to twice the size of the Royal Library of Canterlot. As Celestia entered the room, torches flared and ignited. 3 of the 4 walls were lined with bookshelves, each one stuffed with books and scrolls. Over a dozen freestanding units were scattered about haphazardly about the vault, each one also loaded and groaning with literature. One of the books floated over to Celestia. It hovered in front of her and opened up, the pages glowing faintly. The pages are sandwiched between massive shield spells, she explained as the book floated down to Twilight's eye level. They're rather old, you see. Twilight squinted at the diagram on the page. Jet engine? She read. She looked up at her mentor. What is it? Another book floated over and opened up, this one showing a diagram of a basic arc. Tradition says that the Magne gave these books to the few civilized ponies. They formed the bedrock for our entire society. Celestia looked back up at the wall and pointed with her foreleg. The entire back wall was covered from floor to ceiling with a massive mural, dominated by a cloaked bipedal figure holding a book in one paw and a metal stick in the other. Various ponies of all 3 kinds were scattered about it. A Pegasus neared the book, and another pony neared the long stick. The sun was shining over in one corner and the moon in the other, and on top of the mountain was clearly an early version of Canterlot, more of a fortress than a city. The Chosen One, Celestia explained, a wistful tone in her voice. The mural was done not long after she left for the final time across the Rainbow Bridge, or the Bridge of Fire as it has become, she said, chuckling. Her voice turned serious as she glanced at Twilight. Perhaps this is the first true lesson in the hidden knowledge I teach you, my prize pupil. A single eyebrow arched. Can you figure it out? Twilight rubbed her chin up and down. She mulled ideas over before finally speaking. I guess maybe some old tales have to start somewhere? She continued at Celestia's encouraging nod. That, deep down, maybe there's some truth to them? She suddenly stood up on all 4 hooves. All legends start somewhere? Celestia craned her neck down and nuzzled Twilight. Very good, Twilight. She lifted her head and looked at the mural. There are legends of her return as well, but they're less substantial. The princess turned on a pair of hooves back to the door. Shall we? Twilight nodded and trotted behind Celestia as they left the vault. I think I'd better go see Mom, she said, head drooping and cheeks flushing lightly. We didn't exactly leave on the best of terms. Indeed you should, Celestia said. Her eyes twinkled slightly. Perhaps that should be the next lesson I teach you. Spike! Spike! Twilight shouted from bed. The book laying up in front of her floated and snapped shut, falling to the top of the pile at the foot of her bed. Spike walked in, rubbing his eyes and yawning. Ugh, what's up? Besides, us at too early an hour for a Saturday, he groused. He walked over to the dresser and grabbed an alarm clock off it. Twilight chuckled slightly. I thought my number 1 assistant had no problems at early in the mornings. The clock jumped out of Spike's paws and landed back on the stand. It's 9 o'clock, silly. She shook her head. Anyway, I finished up all my books and will be heading back to the library for some more. She hopped out of bed and reared back on her hind legs. To the library! Spike took a glance at Twilight. You're kidding, right? He walked over to the window and threw it open, letting in sunshine and a light breeze. It's gorgeous out, and Moondancer has a party tonight. He looked back at the purple unicorn. Do you really just want to stay in, and why am I having this conversation for the 10th time? His tiny shoulders drooped, and walked over to a stack of books. One rather large tome with a brown cover and a stylized horse's head on the cover caught his eye. He picked it up and held it facing Twilight. Hey, what's this one? Twilight narrowed her eyes and walked to the baby dragon. Wait, I don't recall reading that one. The book jumped out of Spike's hands and opened, the pages flipping through. Mare and the Moon? She read. She looked at the spine and the lettering there. It's from the vault! Spike just rolled in his eyes. Oh, it's probably some old... Twilight bit her lip. Tell you what, Spike. I think I'll head out. Like you said, you stay in and get some more rest, since you're a baby dragon. She flipped to the pages. I wonder if any of this is true. 1 year later. It was supposed to be a nice afternoon in the small town of Ponyville, and for the most part, it was. Celestia's light bathed every pony in warmth, and only a few stray clouds dotted the sky, like cotton candy. Birds flitted about, while the ponies went about their business, selling rares or going about other tasks. But over the neighboring evergreen forest, trouble hung in the air in the form of black smoke, wafting up from somewhere beneath the branches, coalescing into a thick cloud that drifted into the untamed winds. A small, cyan-colored female Pegasus with a rainbow-colored mane darted about the cloud. She wore a pair of goggles and headset radio. "Eagle 1 to mothership! Eagle 1 to mothership!" She said into the tiny microphone and said, "I am over the target area and awaiting further instruction. Over!" A groan rumbled in Twilight's throat. She, and her faithful assistant Spike, stood in the basket of the hot air balloon as it floated in the air to the Everfree. She sat down on her haunches and gingerly clicked a button on her headset. "Dash, you can't just say Twilight." Dash's voice came over the headphones, causing the unicorn to wince. "Oh, come on, Twi! We are in a mission here, and the Royal Guard uses call signs. It makes us sound important and cool." Twilight leaned forward and peered through the telescope mounted on the basket's rim. She spied Dash hovering over the cloud as it slowly but steadily increased in height and width. "And we don't have time for silly games," she snapped back. "Now, just remember to stay there, and whenever you do, don't fly down and pick a fight with the dragon." A low chuckle came over Dash. "No way, Twi! I remember what happened last time I picked a fight with one of Spike's cousins." There was a pause before she continued. The little guy can't hear me, can he?" Twilight bit her lip and glanced down at the tiny dragon. So he seriously nodded as he spoke. "It's all set, Dash." The smile dropped away and was replaced by a really serious mien. "Keep tabs while we're ready. Weapon F." A snort long aft caused the unicorn to wince. Weapon F? Who came up with that? Pinkie Pie? Oh no, it had to be Spike. Just had to. There was another pause. He didn't hear that, did he? Twilight's lips curled and her right eye twitched. "Maybe he did, Dashie. Over and out." Click. She clicked on the headset and leaned forward again. She quickly spotted her friend once more over the smoke. "Stay away from that, Dash! I don't think you'll be so forgiving if you apply a kick to his chin like the other one." Her horn glowed, and the dial on the headset ratcheted over. "Twilight to Applejack. Is Weapon F ready?" A snort and a long laugh caused the unicorn to wince. "Weapon?" 4 ponies stood on the rough boundary of the Everfree Forest. The first one, an orange surf pony with a Stetson hat, tapped the headset and nestled under the hat and growled. "How in the way do you work this thing?" Applejack grumbled. She pushed the mic with her hoof, bending it to her mouth. "Twilight, can you hear me?" she half shouted. She groaned back and sat on her haunches. "Ah, horse apples!" She looked up at the balloon as it hung over her head. "Twilight, can you hear me?" Her hat suddenly floated off her head, followed by the headset. The hat popped down into Applejack's head, ears flattening slightly, while the headset floated over to an alabaster white unicorn, with an expertly coiffed mane and tail of various shades of purple. "Applejack, such a device requires a delicate touch," Rarity said. The headset touched down upon her head, right behind her horn, and wobbled slightly. "I wonder if I could spruce this up a bit," she thought out loud, rubbing her chin with her hoof. Applejack narrowed her eyes. "Just talk on the dang bird thing already!" Rarity eyed the Earth Pony back, but simply spoke into the mic. "Twilight, can you hear me?" "This is, Spike. Sorry, but Twilight is massaging her ears right now and shouting 'what' while blinking." There was a pause before. "So, what are you doing later that you need heavy lifting for? Just in case you need a strong dragon to..." Rarity was as there was a slight hiss of static over the earphones. Twilight's voice came over. "Twilight that about Rarity. Spike was being Spike." There was a pause. "Is Weapon F ready?" Rarity glanced over her shoulder at a nearby bush and sighed, her hair drooping. "Give me a minute." She walked over and around the bush to find Fluttershy lying on her back, all 4 legs in the air, and a frozen expression of wide eyes and upper lips carried back in a frozen expression of pure fear. Her eye moved about, before finally focusing on Rarity. So big," she quavered. Rarity pasted a smile on her face as Applejack and Pinkie Pie trotted over. "Oh, darling, you'll be all right." She patted Fluttershy on the shoulder. Remember the dragon you faced down on the mountain? She swept her arm dramatically toward the far-off mountain ranges on the horizon. When all hope was lost, you flew up and looked the dragon right in the eye and convinced her to seek out another home. And here, you must do the same. You must! Applejack walked around to Fluttershy's hindquarters and grabbed her tail by the teeth. I don't think you can help her. She grunted out between pulls. She looked at Pinkie Pie as she stood there, head cocked slightly to the side. Little health, sugar? Pinkie Pie bounced up and down on her hooves, eyes already growing larger. Oh, I know what to do! She ran off, leaving a trail of dust behind, before suddenly appeared with a tray balanced on top of her head. Several measuring cups full of sugar rested on the tray. I have white, brown, refined, barley. Not that kind of hindsight! Applejack said. She dragged Fluttershy around in a circle, so the Pegasus could see the evergreen forest, and the cloud of smoke now threatening to spill into Ponyville skies. Listen, Sugar Cube. We all know how scared you are of dragons, but this one's going to need a talking to just like the last one. There's no scary mountain to climb this time. Fluttershy's expression relaxed somewhat, and her legs wobbled slightly. That's true, and my friends do need me, she said, and rolled off her back and stood up straight. She pressed the long strand of her mane hanging in front of her face and stared up. First at the balloon hovering at the ends of the forest, then at the tiny blue dot near the center of the accursed land. And I won't fail them. I'll look the dragon straight in the eye, and... The center of the air-free forest erupted. Tree trunks flew straight into the air as a 100-meter-tall dragon covered in emerald scales emerged. His long, sinewy neck darted back and forth, pale eyes looking around. He spotted the balloon and snorted. "Tis a thief!" he shouted, rattling the air with his voice. He tapped the talon head. "You stole from me, pest! Now vengeance shall be mine!" The dragon reared back and saw a stream of fire from his mouth, directly at the balloon. Blue Dot and Rainbow Dash shot along the trail of flame. Rainbow cocktailed behind her as she raced the ribbon of flame. She raced the balloon seconds ahead of the flame, and arrived just as she, Twilight, and Spike to be enveloped in fire, along with the basket and balloon itself. The canvas and wooden basket incinerated, raining down a falling pyre of ash in the ground. The four ponies at the ground waited for the rainbow streak to emerge, to fly somewhere from overhead. They waited, and waited, and nothing came. Pinkie Pie's mouth opened as she looked at the ash on the ground. Her mane suddenly straightened out, dripping down almost to the ground while her color faded. "No," she whimpered. Fluttershy's heart hammered in her chest, and her eyes welled up with tears. She dropped her head to her knees and elbows as time slowed to a crawl. "Twilight, the Dash, Spike." She tilted her head and inarticulately wailed. Rarity took a few hesitating steps over to the fine powdery remains of her friends and sat down, pawing at it with her hooves, kicking up dust. Tears streamed down her cheeks, ruining her mascara, and she didn't give a damn. "No!" Applejack merely snorted and dug at the ground. Her cheeks turned red. "I'll kill ya!" she shouted, running off into the direction of the dragon, not caring about the consequences. Rainbow Dash snorted to the ground near the edge of the smoke, staying as far away as she could breathe while keeping her eyes peeled from the smoke. She adjusted her goggles and sighed. "Come on! I need some sort of..." The forest suddenly exploded, and the dragon burst forth. Dash's wings blurred as she neared the debris raining down. "Whoa!" She tapped her head and said, "You can want to... Cowgrass! Twilight! What the hell's going on?" The dragon roared and looked around, finally settling on the balloon. While he spoke, Dash's mind worked overdrive. "Okay, kick him in the face and become the fastest cloud of ass in Equestria, or fly over to the balloon and..." Her ponytail thought was interrupted as the dragon reared back and shot a stream of fire at the balloon. Instincts kicked in. Rainbow Dash shot off toward the balloon, wings barely visible as she pumped her forward. "Must get to Twilight and Spike! Must get to my friends! Come on, Bonnie! Move it! Move it! Move it!" She passed by the flame. Familiar pressure built up on her face as the air around her distorted. Energy built up as she reached the basket, the unicorn and dragon within. She barely noted Twilight's horn glowing as she grabbed on her forelegs. She, Spike, and Twilight all vanished in a bright white light. Dash's senses stretched out as she floated, fell, and stood still. Twilight's muzzle stretched out to infinity, while Spike's entire body folded in on itself. The blackest void wobbled before the seams of not and reality split apart, and Dash shot forward, momentum kicking back in at the distorted Pegasus. She hurled out over the blue sky, quickly plummeting down to the ground below. She passed over a small section of forest before coming upon some strange-looking houses and a series of paved roads. Dash twisted about in midair as she nosedived in the backyard of one of the houses, letting herself take the brunt of the impact. Pain exploded around her wing joint and back as she hit the lawn, Twilight and Spike trembling from her grip and rolling away. Dash rolled about, keeping her wings tucked in so they weren't ripped from her hip. Her hindquarters where the wings were attached to her torso. Dash finally stopped rolling near the back of the house. She struggled to her hose and groaned, "Everyone all right?" She blinked away to blackness, encroaching on her senses, and saw Twilight and Spike staggering to her hose and feet, respectively. "Good!" she said, smiling. She glanced around the stained house, so big with oddly shaped windows and a strange, one-piece door. A shadow fell over her as she twisted her head around, instantly regretting it as waves of dizziness and nausea assaulted her. She saw a creature standing before her, shaped somewhat like Spike with 2 arms, 2 legs, and standing upright. It wore clothes similar to what Applejack or the Appaloosa sellers might wear. She held out her hands. "Are you all right?" she asked, concern clearly etched on her face. Dash managed to smile. "Never better." Blackness soon overtook her vision. Shock from the exertion and simple exhaustion gripped her, and she said no more.